Thank you, Justice Choir, for that beautiful music by our own Matthew Grissett. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. Welcome into this loving community of seekers where we strive to live with integrity, nurture wonder, and inspire the actions that transform us and transform the world. I want to highlight that little nurture wonder piece because if I find you after the service standing on the front steps with your mouth open as you gaze at the snow in the mountains, I won't be surprised. I encourage you to soak in this truly beautiful and rare occasion that's happening all around us in the world right now. I would like to extend a special welcome to any visitors or friends and family we have with us, whether you're joining us in our online sanctuary or are here in this physical sanctuary with us. We would love to get to know you better. So stop by our welcome table after the service, have a cup of coffee or tea, join us in our online coffee hour and fill out our online connection card or this little yellow card that you'll find in your order of service here in the room. And this Sunday, I am delighted to say that brunch break is back. Sorry for the online folks, but here in this room, we'll have quiche and salad and granola and all of it going to support the youth group and their upcoming service trip to the Hopi Reservation. In addition to delicious food, there is also beautiful jewelry and crafts from the Hopi and Navajo friends, as well as an opportunity to own a truly remarkable piece of pottery from Dee Satella. There's a raffle going on for one of his pieces. Dee is our dear friend who we stay with when we're on the reservation. He is a traditional Hopi potter. His pieces are found in art galleries and museums. It's truly remarkable the work that he does in this world, and you all can have a chance to take a piece of that beauty home. So check out the raffle as well. I would like to thank anyone who was part of our Warming Center volunteer teams who were activated this week. It's been such a relief to know that the warming centers are here when we need them. So thank you to all of you who have cooked and provided hospitality to our guests while we've been activated for our warming centers. I would like to invite Carol Schwitzer forward with an invitation for everyone as well. Carol, you want to come on up?
I have an invitation for you for this coming Friday at 2 o'clock in Parish Hall. You'll be excited to know that our own Charlotte Brigante, director of our religious exploration program, Lifespan, a religious exploration program, will be speaking and sharing with us what is going on, what's being planned, and what's behind our religious exploration at this society. That's at 2 o'clock. In Parish Hall on Friday. It's open to anyone. Bring a friend and come to listen and then to share refreshments and companionship afterward. Come and bring a friend.
And finally, I want to say, if you're looking up here and you're wondering, is there something different up here in the front of the sanctuary? It may be subtle, but you'll notice that my face is illuminated in a new way. The pulpit is visible, and all of this is because we are delighted to say we have finally installed some new lighting and a new light board here in the sanctuary. And yeah, it's worthy of applause. I love our beautiful old building with its old wiring. And we were blowing out fuses right and left, but we've installed new LED lights, which have a much lower power load, which are good for the environment and good for us here. And all of this would not be possible without the generosity of Charlene Little, Larry Williams, Mark and Sally Hamilton, and Becky Blake, who made special contributions that enabled us to keep shining here on Sunday mornings together. So thank you all. And it is also my great joy to be able to listen to a sermon this morning from a dear colleague, the Reverend Jamie Hinson Rieger, who's here with us this morning. Jamie, very much welcome to you. Phew. I invite you to take a breath, to settle yourself where you are, to allow yourself to arrive here in this space, this time together, wherever you are. Allow your spirit to catch up with your body this morning as we ring our bell and let the sound connect us. If you have a chalice or a candle at home that you would like to prepare to kindle with us this morning, go ahead as we get ready to light our own chalice. And the Warner family, Merge, Joy, and Robert, you want to come on up to do our chalice lighting this morning? Come on up. And if you're joining us online, you can type chalice is lit and the name of wherever it is you're joining us from, the street, the town, the community. And I would like now to invite Reverend Jamie to come forward for our words for chalice lighting.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Barbara Peskin. For the beauty of the earth, this spinning blue-green ball, yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place. To remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, we light our chalice today in your honor.
We have one more flame to kindle this morning, and that is our candle of memory for Mary Marks. Mary Marks had been a member of this congregation for about the past 4 years after she moved here to Santa Barbara. She made her home here, found deep joy in connecting with this congregation, and she died peacefully with her family at the age of 92 this past Friday. So let us take a moment now to remember Mary and all of those who have made their time here, their home here with us for a time, and on whose shoulders we rest. Blessings on your journey, Mary. Every Sunday here at the Unitarian Society, we take a moment to lift up change for the good that we see in the world, to put an entry into our collective change jar. So I invite you now to think of some place where you've seen more love come into the world, some place that has kindled hope in your heart this past week. I invite you to type it into the chat or share it with one another at coffee hour after the service. And for our collective entry into our change for the good jar this morning, I want to lift up the women in Iran. The women who are still struggling to gain their autonomy and freedom, who are struggling to retain their choice to wear the hijab or not, the ongoing protests in the small everyday living that they are undergoing, and lift them up in solidarity this morning as we lean toward the good together. Let us lean into song together this morning with number 38, Morning Has Broken. Please rise in body and spirit and join in singing.
right. I would like to invite the children and also people of any other age to come forward for a story. Come on down, come on down. All right. That's all right. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me for our story this morning. I love that polar bear. Thank you. Our story this morning is called The Morning After Creation. It was the morning after creation, and all of the animals had assembled to pick out their niches, their own particular thing that they would do that would be unique to them, so that there would not be too much competition among one another. So, for example, Goat said, I will pick eating everything, like everything, even tin cans and walking straight up mountains. And Tiger Shark said, hey, I like that. I think I will pick eating everything, like everything, even license plates, but I will do it swimming in the sea. Then Flounder, who has two eyes on one side of his face, said, if you're going to be swimming around up there, I think I will pick laying around on the bottom of the ocean and looking like a weird Picasso fish. Eagle said, has anyone taken soaring majestically? I think I will take soaring majestically. Hawk said, I was going to take soaring majestically. Let's talk. So all of the animals were working out like this, what their thing was going to be, their own niche on the earth, their one particular thing. But then humans said, my niche will be being important. Say that again, said the animals. My thing will be being important, said human, the most important. There was an uncomfortable silence. You can't pick being the most important, said Crow. That's not a thing. We're all important. How about your thing is walking on two legs and holding committee meetings? And Human agreed to walking on two legs and having committee meetings, but secretly he said to himself, and also being the most important. And the animals said to each other, let's keep an eye on that one. So each animal did its chosen thing, and because they had chosen pretty well, the animals mostly lived in balance and respected each other's boundaries, except for Human. Human, because he considered himself the most important, kept expanding into other animals' territory. So, for example, lots of animals fished in the sea, but Human fished so much and so aggressively that he began to empty out the ocean for the other animals, and then he filled it with garbage instead. Lots of animals built their homes in the forest, but Human began to chop down the forests themselves to build homes for himself absolutely everywhere. Lots of animals burrowed into the Earth Mother for food and shelter, but humans began to dig the Earth Mother up in great gouges, looking for oil and minerals and other things useful to Human. He even blew the tops off of entire mountains when it suited him. Over time, Human's behavior became so outrageous and so disruptive to the other animals that Dog decided that something needed to be done. Dog decided to domesticate himself, to get closer to humans so he could understand. Eventually, Dog went to live in Human's house and became a constant companion to Human and his family. They became friends of sorts, except that Human still believed himself the most important. Dog tried to teach Human about other things that were equally important. When they went out for walks, Dog would leap ahead in joy, pointing out the beauty of the fields and the forests. He tried to teach Human how to bury his nose deep into the ground to catch the glorious scent of other living things. Human didn't get it. He tried to teach Human the respectful way to greet another being with proper bows and butt sniffs. Human didn't get it. He tried to teach Human how to nap and play and not be so important. Sometimes Human got it, and then sometimes he seemed to forget it again. Human could be frustrating. But what did happen over time is that human learned to love dog, to really love dog, and became curious about him. He began to try to understand how the world might look from dog's point of view, not for his own ends, but just because he wanted to be a better friend to him. And in time, human discovered that the other animals were also trying to teach him things, not just dog, but cat and horse and cow and crow and even whale from far away in the ocean. And human began to wonder for the first time if he was the most important animal after all. It was a beginning. This story doesn't have an ending yet. I wonder if we can think one up together. That is our story for today. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. And now we are going to sing the children out to their religious exploration classes. Have a beautiful day.
We hold you.
I invite us into a time of meditation, prayer, and reflection. Let's begin by just taking a breath together, breathing in, breathing out, taking one more breath, breathing in, and breathing out. We hold in our hearts this morning everybody impacted in our communities by the extreme weather of the last few days, and everyone who will be impacted in the coming days as this weather moves throughout other communities. We hold in our hearts a desire that our neighbors be safe, that all have the resilience and resources they need to meet whatever challenges they may be facing. In a world of increasingly extreme weather, let us be mindful of the accelerating impact of climate change, which we know falls on vulnerable communities unequally and unjustly. And then let us be conscious this morning of all the ways we are connected to each other, to our communities, connected to our earth, which grounds and nurtures and sustains us, connected to the mystery of life, to the energies of healing and hope and possibility that are ever present in the world, which companion us even in our sorrow, even when those things may feel distant and inaccessible. And then may we be grateful that in hard times, we may be the bearers of healing and hope and possibility for each other. Imperfect vessels as we are, just as we are, we may be the bringers of love and kindness, of care and compassion to one another. With a word, a gaze, a steadying hand, or just our presence, just our willingness to be there for one another. Let us be grateful for the gifts that we've been given that make us strong and resilient, creative beings. And let us remember that we are always held in love. This is a poem by Joy Harjo called Eagle Poem. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments, steadily growing. And in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky and wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. I invite us now to share a moment of silence together. Our reading is The Same Stream of Life by Rabindranath Tagore. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth in numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and death, in ebb and in flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this moment.
Every month here at the Unitarian Society, we partner with a project or program that lives our values in the world. We share part of our offertory to support this work. And this month, this is the last Sunday of the month where we're partnering with Belated Conversations. Belated Conversations is a Unitarian Universalist curriculum that is now offered online across the nation. Thousands of Unitarian Universalists have worked through this beautiful exploration of anti-racism work. It's not just an educational program, it's also a heartfelt soul-opening experience. I highly commend it to you. If you're curious about it, you can talk to Charles Darwin, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education. But the money we collect will go to support scholarships for Belated Conversations so that everyone can participate without worrying about financial access. So I'm so proud of this congregation and the commitment it has to the anti-racism work that is so necessary in this world. And Belated Conversations is a great way to participate. So please read with me the affirmation of gratitude and giving that is in your order of service or on the screen. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful to those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. You keep moving on. One foot in front of the other. Lead
Wow, that was amazing. I just want to start by saying what a thrill it is to be here. I am so grateful to be joining you this Sunday morning. Thank you so much, Matt and the Justice Choir, for that beautiful music. Reverend Julia, for your warm welcome, and the tech crew and everyone who makes worship happen. And what an amazingly beautiful sanctuary space you have today. Thank you for letting me be part of this. I have to tell you, it was not snowing in Indianapolis when I left, so I had to come all the way to California to get a little snow in February. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Felt very homey. So I'd like to begin today, if you will indulge me, with my favorite Charles Darwin anecdote, because February 12th, even though we're a little late, was Charles Darwin's birthday. Today celebrated in many UU congregations as Evolution Sunday. And it would have been Darwin's 214th birthday, to be exact. So even though we're 2 weeks too late, I offer you this Charles Darwin story in his honor as a belated happy birthday. So Charles Darwin, from a very young age, had a hobby of collecting and classifying living things. And he became a good amateur naturalist in the pursuit of his hobby. And in particular, as a young student at Christ College at Cambridge, he got taken up with the popular craze of the day for collecting beetles. You don't think as a parent that your kid is going to go off to college and get mixed up in entomology, but it happens. It happens. So one day, Charles was out on the quad, busy not doing his homework, and he happened to spy an unfamiliar species of beetle climbing up a tree. And excited by the find, he went over, he stopped to gather it in his right hand. And when he got closer, he noticed that there was a regular caravan of beetles going up and down the trunk of the tree. So he grabbed another specimen in his left hand, and then, having run out of useful appendages, but with more beetles still within any easy reach, he did what any coleopterologist, any beetle guy worth his salt would do, and he put the beetles in his mouth for safekeeping so he could gather some more. Whereupon the beetles, much aggrieved and aggressed upon, sprayed a noxious blast of chemicals from their hind ends directly onto his tongue. So from Charles Darwin, we learn two important things. All life on Earth arose from a common ancestor through a continuously unfolding natural process that took place over billions of years. And very important, when securing beetles with your mouth for safekeeping, be sure to place them between the lips, butt side facing out. If you remember one thing from this sermon, so you might not think so from this anecdote, but Charles Darwin was one of the greatest geniuses who ever lived, and one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. The influence of Darwin's work on later scientific study is really incalculable. He is the foundation from which all life scientists and natural historians begin. Outside the sciences, his ideas shook the pillars of Western civilization, challenged old worn-out notions of philosophy and religion. He revolutionized our understanding of what it means to be human and what our place is in the web of life. And we are still, 214 years later, working out the implications of his discoveries. And yet Darwin is a different kind of genius than what we usually think of when we think of a genius. He's not the picture that we usually have of this unparalleled intellect having this sudden kind of eureka moment, and then all these ideas just spill out of his overheated brain. He's not an Einstein imagining himself riding on a beam of light and having the flash of insight that would turn into the theory of special relativity. He is not a young Sir Isaac Newton who, cooped up at home for a couple of summers, college being closed for the plague, invented calculus, optics, and the law of gravity just to kill some time. That's a true story, by the way. Isaac Newton redefined what it means to say, I had a pretty good year. Darwin's genius was of a different sort. Darwin's genius was of a different sort. Darwin's genius was grounded in a passionate love of seeing, of carefully examining the natural world all around him, of taking it in and sketching it out in his notebooks. He drew constantly, and then in the enormous patience with which he made his scientific case, with which he formulated his ideas after he'd begun to suspect what he had begun to suspect. He painstakingly accumulated data and corroborating evidence from many different scientific branches: zoology, geology, botany, paleontology, animal husbandry, and from the study of many diverse kinds of life. He studied beetles, turtles, the famous Galapagos finches, carrier pigeons, bivalves, orchids, primates. He built the case for his great idea from this mountain of evidence over decades, until finally taking his ideas public when it seemed like he was about to be scooped by someone else. And by then, his work was unassailable. Charles Darwin, of course, is the person credited with the discovery of evolution through natural selection. That is to say, he discovered that all present-day life, all living things, you, me, algae, antelopes, zucchini, badgers, mushrooms, mosquitoes, all of it can be traced back through time to a single common ancestor, which was basically a leaky bag of cell bits powered by light. And he discovered that all of this magnificent living variation sprang up through the process of natural selection, whereby small changes caused by random mutations accumulate over time as they prove beneficial to an organism's survival and reproduction. And you multiply those small changes by billions of years, and you can go from single-celled organisms like bacterium to multi-celled organisms like Ryan Gosling. And it was Darwin's genius to painstakingly accumulate this massive body of evidence over decades, through travels all over the world, to make his case. And today, 214 years after Darwin's birth, his theory of evolution is as much established fact as anything in science can be, right? And yet, the radical implications of his discovery and the spiritual implications of his discovery, we are still wrestling with. Because evolution calls us to rethink and reimagine our relationship with life on Earth. Before the theory of evolution, of course, the fundamental story to explain the appearance and diversity of life on Earth, at least in the West, which is where we are, was the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, which is also the Christian Old Testament. And the book of Genesis, of course, says that the universe, the earth, all life was created over the course of 6 days by God. And then to cap off this project at the end of the 6th day, God created humans as a special act of creation, as the only object of creation made in the image of God. And then God put us in charge of everything that came before. And in this story, we humans are granted dominion over the earth and all its living things, dominion. And evolution takes the idea of the special creation of human life, a life that is radically different from other kinds of living beings, and it replaces it with the idea that all life, including our own, is the product of one continuously unfolding process set in motion ultimately by the birth of the universe. Evolution replaces 6 days of Genesis with 14 billion years, give or take. 12 billion years from the Big Bang to make a Milky Way galaxy, to shape and cool and properly water a nutrient-rich Earth, an unknown amount of time for some of those nutrients to spontaneously organize into replicating molecule chains, and then 2 billion years, give or take, for those replicating molecule chains to organize into living cells, and then for those living cells to diversify into all the life we see around us. And Charles Darwin surmised, and science tends to confirm his view, that all things alive today, everything alive today, are the common descendants of one single ancestral organism. And from this single root grew the tangled tree of life. As species branched off and branched off and branched off from their forebears, each finding their own unique way to make a successful living in the ecosystem. But here's the thing, popular depictions of evolution often greatly simplify this process to show this kind of linear march of life forms through time. And you've seen the posters, right? Like the fish is crawling out of the water, evolves into the reptile, then the mammal, then the primates, the humans. The arrangement visually suggests a process of replacement of one thing turning into a newer, better thing. It still reads like a story of progress, where humans are at the end of progress. And in this way, the emotional content, the spiritual content of the old dominion idea of humanity's specialness is preserved within the new framework of evolution. We think naturally in terms of lower and higher life forms, and we naturally place ourselves at the top of a ladder of being. So, for example, the question is sometimes asked honestly by people who don't, or misunderstand evolution, thinking of a life as a progression from worse to better, that if monkeys evolved into humans, why are monkeys still around? If the lower life forms evolved into the higher life forms, then why weren't the lower life forms replaced? And this is a misunderstanding of evolution, right? Because, of course, monkeys did not evolve into humans. Rather, monkeys and humans share a common ancestor. So what that means is at some point there was a species that was not a monkey and not a human, and some of its descendants settled on the monkey way of being in the world, which is awesome. And some of its descendants settled on the human way of being in the world, which is equally awesome. So evolution is not a linear progression. It is a branch giving rise to more branches, which give rise to more branches, which give rise to more branches. And our human species then is one tiny green shoot on one of millions of branches on the tree of life, each having come into existence in exactly the same way, each sharing the common trait of having found an awesome way of being in the world. How absurd then to circle our one tiny shoot on this enormous bristling plant of healthy, successful growths and say, well, this is clearly the reason the plant exists, and all of the whole must exist to serve this little tiny green shoot. So evolution has been called a second Copernican revolution. The first Copernican revolution said the Earth, and thus humankind, is not at the center of the universe, but lies in one corner of a spiraling galaxy amidst billions of galaxies. Evolution, the second Copernican revolution, says humankind is not at the center of the biosphere either. We're not a special act of creation made by God on the sixth day and given dominion of the earth. We are not above other living beings. And so evolution proposes a radical decentering of the human story and the overall story of life on Earth. We're one species among millions, all created by the same unthinking process, neither more nor less likely, neither more nor less chosen, neither more nor less destined for a bright future. Evolution tells us, in the words of you minister Forest Church, that we come from a common source and we share a common destiny. And what a common source it is. Born of ancient stars whose matters traversed billions of miles of space to shape our galaxy, our world, and ultimately become our very flesh and blood. We have stardust in our bones and stardust in our veins, and our story is as old as the universe and inseparable from the universe. What mystery and magic and dignity there is in this story of life. Now, you can certainly believe in evolution and still believe in some concept of God or deity. You can be a theist and believe in evolution. Some 30% of Americans who believe in evolution also believe the process was set in motion or is somehow inspired or guided by a divine being, a spirit of life, creative force, however you want to conceive of that. Scientifically speaking, the theory of evolution does not require this helper God, but it's not incompatible with it. But what I would say to anyone who does believe that evolution is the means by which God created life is then to consider the story of evolution as an alternative creation text and ask, what is the meaning of this creation text, this scientific story? Because it's a story which emphasizes our kinship, our interconnectedness, our interdependence with all other living things, not our separateness. It is not a story of dominion. And the dominion mythos, I believe, has been a ticking time bomb within our culture. Because as long as humans were limited in their capacity to materially affect their environment, this dominion worldview might condone the local exploitation of animals and the local despoliation of the environment, but it could not break out to do global harm. But for the last several centuries, our astonishing increase in technological prowess has been harnessed to the engine of global capitalism to exert our dominion over the natural world to an unprecedented degree. And too late, we are discovering as climate change and species extinction spiral out of control, that our pretense at dominion is an illusion, that we remain in the end utterly dependent on natural systems vastly greater than our ability to predict and control. And so we need a new creation story. We need a creation story that emphasizes our kinship with the web of life, not our separateness. We need a creation story that restores the dignity of the natural world and all of its living inhabitants. We need a creation story that brings us back into oneness with the processes that nurture and sustain us. And we need a creation story that reconnects us to the enchantment and the awesomeness of the natural world. And those creation stories exist in other cultures. Biologist Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is also a member of the Potawatomi Nation, writes in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. She writes, in the Western tradition, there's a hierarchical, recognized hierarchy of beings, with, of course, the human being on top, the pinnacle of evolution. But in native ways of knowing, she says, in native ways of knowing, human people are often referred to as the younger brothers of creation. We say that humans have the least experience with how to live and thus the most to learn. And she says we must look to our teachers among the other species for guidance. Their wisdom is apparent in the way that they live. They teach us by example. She says they've been on the earth far longer than we have been, and they've had time to figure things out. So in a 2015 article called Nature Needs a New Pronoun, Robin Wall Kimmerer relates how Darwin's fundamental scientific discovery that all life is not just interrelated, but literally related, that all living things are kin. This insight is already embedded in the language of some native people. Kimmerer says that in her native language of Anishinaabe, which was erased from her family through the boarding schools, and which she has to relearn as an adult. In her native language of Anishinaabe, it is impossible to speak of a living thing as an it. In Anishinaabe and many other native languages, she says, we use the same words to address all living things as we do our family, because they are our family. And imagine if embedded in our language itself was the idea that nature was our kin. How different would our world be? Would our oceans be dying? Would our forests be disappearing? Would the mass extinction of non-human species be an unrecognized, uncontested, unchallenged reality of the modern world as it in fact is today? How differently would we orient ourselves to the world if we saw it as kin, which it is? Darwin himself wrote, there's grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, that from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful, most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. End quote. There's grandeur in this view of life. It is the view of life to which our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle calls us, one rooted in the most profound respect for the great web of being, in profound gratitude to life and our relationship to it, and one which must call us to some grief for the ways in which we have dishonored that relationship, and for the ways in which we have torn the fabric of the web. Written into each creature, howsoever humble, is the history of the universe. You, me, the squirrels chasing each other on the lawn, the insects churning the soil underneath, the birds serenading us above. We're all part of the same ancient story of life, unfolding since before even the stars lit the skies. And within us and through us all move the same creative force, bringing endless new forms of life into being. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day, says the poet Tagore, runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. May we encounter this enchanted world and know its ancient beauty, feel our deep kinship with life teeming all around us, and let us learn a new creation story, not a story of separation and domination, but a story of connection and care, a story of kinship. And may this new story be a story of renewal, a story of hope, and a story of healing for our world that so needs healing. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn today is number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. We will sing verses 1 through 4. Our closing words are by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. May our relationship with life around us be rooted in respect, curiosity, and mutuality, receiving the earth's gifts with gratitude and honoring her in return with care. Blessed be, and amen. And now we will call out a blessing.